And next we have Player Reach the Top, LitRPG series, book number 1, written by Rick Scars. This is 509 pages, $2.99. That is available on Kindle Unlimited. And here's the author's description. 2044. The world of games changed long ago. Ascension has become one of the most popular VRMMO games. It is a huge world divided into hundreds of floors, with each floor a boundless location with its own countries, tribes, and millions of players. The object of the game is to unlock all the gates and conquer the top. Having joined the game, William Thomas doesn't realize that he is all by himself, and then he accepts the first quest. Cursed Rat, level 46. And that's actually the novel description. The rest of the novel description is like, oh, this is a book that has over 1,000 planned chapters and already has 300 in Russian, spanning over 6 books. And there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the actual novel itself. But it is supposed to be a Russian translation of a story that's supposed to be popular in Russian. I can neither confirm it or deny that. I can only tell you what the novel description says. But because it is a translation, you should expect some translation and technical writing issues in the story. There aren't a lot, but there were the ones that were there were noticeable. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound quite right, and it's probably a translation thing. So if that bothers you, sorry. But for me, it's just like, oh, okay, just a thing to note. And this happens a lot in Russian translations or any kind of translation work where it's some phrases and some colloquialisms just don't translate perfectly, and it is what it is. The story itself is a multi-narrative story that switches between the main character and the higher level stuff he's going through and other players. The main character is a new MMO player that starts in a high level area by accident instead of a starter town. He has to figure out a way to level, get skills, and money when even the rats are 40 times his level. The other POVs are particular clan leaders looking to find out who the main character is, or just random players used to tell a story or develop a quest line background. So you're actually going to get the majority of the story stays with the main character, it does. But there are these breaks where you're seeing, again, some guild leader's point of view, who's kind of sort of jealous of the main character and his like rapid ascension in the levels because of his situation, or like just background for these player guild leaders, or just like again randomish people going on quest lines. But it's supposed to be like this little short story about, oh, this is like background information on like big story things that are planned for the series. But there are breaks and others. These are other points of view that are also in the story, and sometimes that happen together, sometimes they don't, or at least not in this particular volume of the series. I personally enjoyed a couple aspects of the story. I like the thoroughness of the story, at least in the beginning portion of it. I like that there weren't any like illogical cheats or OP abilities in the beginning story. When I first looked at this cover and I read the description, I really wasn't sure to make of it, and I'm glad that I gave it a chance because it turned out to be pretty entertaining. Again, the main character has to start out in a higher level zone, even though he's level 1, and even the rats are like level 40, and everything goes from 40 to like 80 or something. And part of his, at least the beginning of the story, is like him overcoming that barrier of like figuring out some way to gain levels. And even though he's at a huge disadvantage, he uses his intelligence and he uses his wits to kind of overcome that. For example, even though he can't afford the high level gear sold by the shop owners and on the particular level, he figures out how to find a friend who spawn on a regular lower level and grind social quests to get money, and then he sends that money to his friend so he can get like level appropriate gear for level 1s and 2s, and that helps him like start to like grind, and he has to do social quests to get experience points, to get a few levels on his belt and stuff like that. I thought was very good. It was, instead of like just cheating and giving the main character some weird overpowered skill where, oh, he can suddenly beat level 40 or 50 characters when he's level 1 magically without any kind of real thought process put into it. That's not here, and I like that fact about it, even though he does, again, obviously at some point beat level 40 characters level 1. He does it in such a way that you don't feel like he's cheating. You feel like he's being intelligent about it, and I like that aspect, at least at the beginning part of the story. Things kind of shift a little bit as the story continues on, because eventually the main character kind of his level starts to match the zone he's in, and so he actively starts being in combat, and he gets a few semi-OP powers towards the middle end of the story, but still it was entertaining. I like that portion of it. The actual game mechanics are fairly standard. They're picked up from MMO, so if you like that kind of stuff, there are lots of item and skill descriptions. Their main character levels up. gets classes, he gets by skills and abilities and equipment. Mid to late story, the actual leveling up process becomes less important, and it's mostly there to show the difference between his progression. I mean, he still levels, and as the story goes on towards the end, it becomes harder for him to level, which makes total sense. But the levels themselves become, again, just less important because the real game progression comes from him getting unique skills, unique equipment that change the way he fights and adventures. And I think that's just a story shift. The story itself, the end of the story isn't really an end. And I think that might bug some people. It's more of a pause. And again, I mentioned this in the beginning of the review. The novel description mentioned that this is only part of a much longer serial story. And the ending reflects that. It's kind of a pause in a very convenient place, but you can tell that there's no real ending. This is more like, volume 1 of this really long series. And so just be aware that if that bugs you, that there's no real ending and there's no real plot, it is just like slice of life stuff, then don't read this. But if you're okay with that kind of thing, then you're going to, I've actually found it very entertaining, a lot more entertaining than I thought it was going to. Overall, I thought it was good, but again, don't expect a traditional novel structure, and don't mind a few translation issues, and I think you'll have a nice time with this. I'm giving it a score of 7.6 out of 10. That's Player Reach the Top, LitRPG series book number 1, with the score of 7.6 out of 10.